My name's Keegan Eisenstadt. I work at ClearSky Climate Solutions with some of my esteemed colleagues who are here as well. It's an honor to be here to receive the award from the SBC and to sit at the panel listening to main movers in our small burg's economy. Also feeling that the Earth is vulnerable. Indeed, I think that is one of the main missions that is driving our company's vision of what it is that we're trying to achieve. The essence really of ClearSky Climate Solutions is that we want to be stewards of the atmosphere. In a time when, as Phil was talking about, the university's growing, we're not in a static environment, how are we going to make these reductions that we've claimed we're going to make by our president signing a piece of paper along with all the other presidents of universities, but our vision is growth, right? That's sort of the fundamental trauma of our vision of economy and society is growth is good, right? So more growth is better. It's more money in our cash box. It's better returns. We got to keep growing. The economy's awful. We're in a recession. We're going to stop all non-essential, non-core function spending, which is like swapping out our tubing or changing light bulbs or what have you. So the planet is growing. We moved over 6 billion people last year, projected to, I think, 8 by 2050. I don't know where 8 billion of us are going to fit, but I also don't know where we're going to be reducing greenhouse gas emissions as a planet as our species continues to multiply in this way. So ClearSky Climate Solutions is sort of an atmospheric point of view. We're looking down on planet Earth and trying to figure out what is it that humans are doing, how are we going to try to fix this, how are we going to solve it. The amount, greenhouse gases in general, we should just think about them. They're our friends, really, right? If we didn't have any, the average surface temp on the Earth would be about minus 15 degrees centigrade. So we like it. We like our position relative to the sun. We like our mass. It's attracted a nice thick atmosphere. We like our 0.03% of our atmosphere that's CO2. That's great for us. But you add more, and all of a sudden this wonderful balance that's really good for our species and that we've evolved to live in changes dramatically. About 60 years ago, and just after World War II, when real, tangible, direct monitoring of CO2 in the atmosphere started taking place, there were about 330 parts per million, and in February of this year, I think we were at 387 parts per million CO2 in the atmosphere. So that's 50 years. That's a relatively big jump. It's got everybody worried. It's interesting that we're in our small little town. It's true, we're 0.1% of our society in Missoula, but we're all talking climate change. That's pretty cool. I hope that's happening all over the world. Because now's the time, Waxman, Markey, cap and trade bills in the Senate, not yet the House, but anyway, this is a very timely thing to be doing, and I'm fortunate to be joined with some colleagues that are vanguard. They're really, leading the edge in what's cool and what's hip, so I'm kind of following along. Mike and Stephen and I do principally 3 things. We design projects around the world that generate certified high-quality carbon offsets. It's sort of a strange idea. The second thing we do is we help institutions, entities, companies, individuals, households do inventories. Okay? The rigor with which John needs to monitor his household or his local fest. We recently offset local fest last weekend. We did an inventory, significantly less formal than this because the number of variables were smaller, but nevertheless, a rigorous inventory of the amount of greenhouse gases that went into making local fest. If you don't measure, you don't know where you're starting. So sort of the motto around our outreach to companies, which is the second phase of ClearSky Climate Solutions, is measure. Once you measure, you can think about reducing, and once you reduce as much as you can offset what's left, which will bring the U back to 0. But the U has to go to 0 by helping, I think, do everything they can, generate their own power or invest in power generation, which is something I haven't heard anybody there talking about, but I've been pushing. And third, invest in offset activities with good projects around the world. From the point of view of the atmosphere, if I'm the atmosphere, I don't care where the carbon offsets come from. Really, the atmosphere is mixed around the globe in about 7 or 8 days, which is why you can't get a 10-day forecast that's worth anything. Right? 7 days, people. 7 days is pretty good. Beyond that, every molecule in the atmosphere has moved through the stratosphere and is mixed. You don't really know what's going to happen. So if I'm the atmosphere and somebody in Panama is doing something that pulls CO2 out of the air, and I'm the U and I've reduced all I can, or I'm the hospital and I want to do something interesting that's part of my community as well as do everything internally, there are offsets that can be added to your program. The other beautiful piece of that is that we get, some money from the U and we start investing it in social activities in the developing world, and we start having a double impact. All of a sudden, we're getting more sustainable and taking account of our climate change waste. Really, greenhouse gases, Mike has simplified this for me lately. Greenhouse gas is garbage. It's garbage from human activities. And just like you pay the BFI to come to your house weekly, take your garbage out, you just put it to the curb. You don't really know what happens to it. You pay a bill. Allied Waste or whoever it is. ClearSky Climate Solutions is the garbage man of the atmosphere. We take your greenhouse gas emissions from flying to Chicago, doing your thing, or heating your new building expansion at the U or what have you, and we take that funds and we invest it around the world in projects that are doing positive, sustainable things, certainly from the point of view of the atmosphere, typically from the point of view of local society, and certainly from the point of view of distribution of wealth and economy, which is typically developed to developing world, but not always. The third piece of our puzzle, so we design projects around the world. I'll mention a couple in a minute that are local. We work with institutions doing greenhouse gas assessments. There's a carbon calculator on our website. If you want to go play, just check out your own footprint. It's at clearskyclimatesolutions.com and click on calculate your footprint. I think that's the link, something like that. The third piece is brokerage of credits. So we are in part a commodities brokerage house. The certified carbon credits, once they're created, are third-party certified. They get a unique serial number. They're put up on a trading platform or in a database from whence they get traded off when somebody buys them. So at that point, they are, according to the lingo of the carbon market, they're retired. That's when the mother atmosphere receives her benefit from all of this energy of human endeavor to try to create a carbon marketplace. 2 projects that we're involved with at the moment that are in Montana. And one I think many of you will know, because I am speaking to the choir a little bit here, but we just found out or received approval to work on creating a carbon credit project at Hull's Dairy down in the Bitterroot. They are in Corvallis. Anybody show of hands? Anybody know Hull's Dairy? All right, a couple. Hull's Dairy, I think actually through MCDC's benefit, and Kaya would be happy to answer all the MCDC questions, and where the orange dots are all around town. They anaerobically digest manure from their dairy cows. So they milked this morning 378 cows, and all the poo that comes out of their cows, all the ladies as they cruise to the milker and cruise back and live in the barn, gets collected, put in big tanks, digested with bacteria. That digestion process kicks out methane. The methane's captured and burned as fuel, turns a generator, creates all the power for the dairy, creates excess heat that's then used in the dairy to feed the microbes in the digesters. They have to be kept at about between 100 and 105 degrees. The solids that come out of the digester is basically the straw the cows ate. That straw's been broken down a little bit, but it's sanitary. It goes back in as bedding for the cows. The bedding makes about 3 rounds through the digester, and then it becomes bagged compost that the dairy sells for landscaping in your garden. The fourth product that comes out is nutrient-rich water. This is similar to the stuff that used to sit in your sewage lagoons if you're an animal feedlot, except it's just the water with nutrients, no pathogen load, because they were cooked out in the digester. It now goes by gravity as part of a sprinkler system, gravity-fed sprinkler system, to grow the hay that feeds the cows in the dairy. That's one type of cool local project. We don't take credit for how cool that is. We just take credit for being able to return enough money from the creation of carbon credits from that project to almost pay the debt burden they have for building it, exclusive of all the money that was given to them to build this pilot project. But very cool thing. Another piece of the puzzle, and just so you know, we're going to be creating carbon credits from that are going to be registered on the California Climate Action Registry. Zatzagavoneta and company have created a new regulatory market in California, which looks, I would say, likely to be akin to what US cap and trade will look like. So this is sort of our pilot experience with what I think nationally is going to be happening. Very cool. A second Montana project is with an aggregated pool of large ranchers in eastern Montana. It's 3 counties in the southeast, and I think it's, Yellowstone, Custer, and one other. 9 ranches. How big's the surface area, Stephen?
70,000 acres.
70,000 acres, and basically they've enforced grazing practices that require that the cows are penned instead of open in their land, and that they're rotated more frequently than they are under normal status conditions. They're moved from pen to pen, and they never get to repeat the same period of the year in the same pen. So whatever soil seed bank you have and native plants that happen to germinate in whatever week, that week, some year they're going to be available to germinate, right? They're also required to move while there's still standing vegetative biomass on the soil. So as you can imagine, it's a small amount of carbon that's sequestered in the soil through this vegetation that's left and not eaten by the cows. And there's also a bunch of environmental benefits by not grazing the same place at the same time every year. So those are 2 sort of Montana things. We sold Montana rangeland credits to Jesse Davey, who offset the last men's Grizz basketball game against Boise State. It was Boise or Idaho State. I don't remember who came. Somebody, and so we measured the footprint of the bus coming from, round trip from Idaho, and we measured the footprint of the energy use at the Adams Center during a basketball game in, I think it was March, which meant heating. And then we also measured practice time of the UM team in the gym to prepare for the week. So, I mean, again, these are just parts of sort of inventories that led us to work on the green game. So lots of things going on. We're proud to be represented in the SBC and to have sort of helped them think about, or help learn as well as help them think about how climate change fits into greater sustainability issues. And I'm honored to sit on the panel with them and look forward to your questions. Thanks.
My name is Whitney Schwab, and boy, I have some tough acts to follow.